Welcome to the Live Like It's True podcast, where we look at some of the most interesting and surprising true stories of the Bible. I'm Shannon Popkin, inviting you to open your Bible with me to drink deeply of the story and to live like it's true. If you're here for one of our recent episodes, we're in the Judgy series. So we're looking at stories of judgment and mercy in the Bible and how to live like it's true that our God is a merciful judge. Lisa Appelo, welcome back to Live Like It's True.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm happy to be back with you.
I didn't even find your bio, which is so fun because it means that you are a friend that I already know. I don't have to look up all the details about you. I'm so grateful for you. We first met when you interviewed last time, and we talked about the widow of Zarephath, right?
Yeah.
And Elijah. It was such a good conversation. We will link to it in case you weren't here for that episode. But Lisa, let me just tell what I know of you. Mother of 7, right?
Yes.
Mother of 7, lost your husband unexpectedly. How many years ago?
It's been 13 years.
13 years. And so now you have grandkids. How
do.
How many grandkids?
I'm a nanny to 13, if you can believe it.
Oh,
we had a little baby boom.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So they're all little. There's like one 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and then they're all just 2, 3 babies.
Oh, that is just so fun. And you're in Florida. Are all of your kids in Florida?
Most of them. I have one who's in the Air Force, and I have one who's on the kind of West Coast, but the rest are here.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and one who's a senior. She's still at home.
Your last baby is graduating from high school. That's exciting. So your first book was called Life Can Be Good Again. And you just talked us through working through grief. And I mean, I have to say, I have recommended your Instagram page to so many people. It's like when someone's going through grief, when they're going through loss, I feel like what you offer is not like the superficial coddling, like the little catchphrasey kinds of things, but you offer really helpful and genuine insight. Is that how you would describe what you're trying to do on Instagram? How would you put it?
Yes. It's interesting that you see it that way. I appreciate that. Because I have a little note to myself before I post to be real, to be authentic, and to point to biblical hope. Because that's it, isn't it? I mean, there is some comfort knowing that what we are experiencing is like normal. Like, oh, I'm not doing this wrong. And so connecting with people that way to say, like, if you are feeling this, this is part of grief, or you may experience this, but then always not just sitting in that. Because God, I remember somebody saying to me, God had so much for you. And I thought, how can you say that? How do you know that? But this far out, and of course, it didn't take me long to see that God did have more for me. And that if I would do the hard work of grief, that I would smile again, that I would find that life could be good again. And of course, I wanted that for my kids, but I wanted that for me as well.
Yeah. So 13 years later, would you say life is good again?
I would. Life is not perfect. Life is never perfect. And there are days where I think I wouldn't even be going through this situation if you were here.
Yeah.
But all of that is under the good hand of God. And He has been so faithful in practically giving me wisdom, giving me guidance, just in so many ways. And so, yes, most days I wake up and I'm excited for the day. I have plans. I have a new vision. I have a ministry.
That's so good. Well, Lisa, we're in this series for the judged and the judgy. How has that? I'm just curious. This is kind of unrelated to the Bible passage we're going to look at, but how does a widow sometimes feel judged or be tempted to be judgy toward others? How has that overlapped your story?
That's a great question. And I think just even that label, widow, we all conjure up a a picture of what the widow looks like. And
not like you, probably.
well, I can tell you so many widows that I meet are like, they don't even want that label, even though it's a beloved label in the Bible. Whenever God talks about the widow or uses the widow as an illustration, he loves her and protects her and does so much for her. But two, I think as a single mom, that is actually where I felt that I wanted to make sure people knew at first. I was like, I want to make sure people know that I'm a single mom because I'm a widow. Because I had sat under sermons. I had heard the statistics from the pulpit. I had, I knew that there were single mom Sunday school classes. And again, there's a picture that comes with that of why that mom is a single mom. And I very quickly realized that was in my own heart, that was some sin that I needed to just let God, that if somebody thought something wrong, that was between them and God. So
he misjudged, right? Misjudged.
Yeah, being misjudged as a single mom.
But my heart goes out for the one who there was a divorce and it was her fault. You know what I mean? Like she too can feel misjudged and want to, give her defense for why this happened and want everyone to know that. And so I think for all of us, whatever situation we find ourselves in, there's a temptation to defend against being misjudged, right? To rise up and have this justice centered rather than letting God be our defense and entrust ourselves to him the way Jesus did. I mean, Jesus also was misjudged. He was killed on a cross, right? And he trusted the Father with that. Well, I'm thinking as you're talking though about even a label that you would want to explain so that you're not misjudged. We're going to talk about a woman who had a title, a label. She was a prostitute, and the image that conjures up. Any thoughts on that, Lisa? Like this woman, Rahab, what did it mean? And like the Bible calls her a prostitute more like even after she's part of God's people. I find that interesting.
Yeah. I have a friend who started a ministry. Her kids were grown, and she began a ministry to go into strip clubs and bring the church into strip clubs. Really, they just love on these women. And the, ultimate desire is to establish a relationship with them and for when they want to get out, that they will have somebody who will say, this is the way out and we have something for you. And then of course to introduce them to Jesus, and to the gospel. But they come in and they bring food. They're known as the church ladies. And so when I was studying this to teach it years ago, I called her and I said, tell me about the women who are in this industry. And she completely changed my presumptions. She said they are broken. They are so broken and they've been so wounded for so long. And so this, I would never presume to speak for somebody, but this is what she told me of her experience. And she said they're just so broken and they've been so wounded that really being in this industry of a strip club is not that far a stretch for them. It's not as shocking for them as it would be for us. And so to see them not as these women who were doing something so bad and doing something like, I just would try to drive around those places when I had kids. I mean, I live in a big city. We have those places all over our city. Instead of seeing them as like them doing that thing, to see them in the light of just a wounded, broken soul who had no idea of the love of Christ that was there for her.
Wow. That's powerful, isn't it? And I think that love and mercy penetrates like nothing else, right? I think so often when we're talking about judging and feeling judged, we're all about what's right and what's wrong. And all of us are on the wrong side of God's gavel. Like we are all facing him as our judge and as the accused, right? We are wrong. And there's none of us who would stand before God and be innocent. And so like to try and turn the gavel, put it in our hands and put somebody else on the other side of it is really unhelpful for us and unhelpful for them. And I think what helps most is for us to unify into this same category of sinful sinner, right? And recognize that he is alone is the righteous one. But I think it's so interesting in this story about a prostitute that she's the one who gets rescued. Like, I really see this as a rescue story. In chapter 1 of The Judge and the Judgy, I'm working on this book right now. And so you're helping me out, Lisa, by talking through these stories and deciding what will get put in this book. But chapter 1, we talked about Noah and the flood. And, here's another story of God's judgment. And we come to know him as the judge he's not the judge that you would present evidence to. He already has all the evidence. His eyes have seen everything. And everyone and everything is laid bare before him. And he is presented as the judge in Noah's flood. And so everyone falls under his judgment under this flood. And yet his mercy rises above his judgment in this ark. There's this beautiful picture, this beautiful contrast between here are the ones that God sets his mercy on. And the story moves forward with them. Well, here we are in Joshua chapter 2, hundreds of years later. And when we talk about these stories of judgment, either the flood or Jericho, the story of Joshua is of this city that God is going to march his people in there and take it over. And help me with what a person outside the faith thinks of that. How do they respond to that, Lisa? Like, I'm sure you have interacted with those who don't think that's a very good picture of God.
I'm sure that they see God of the Old Testament. This is what we hear. God of the Old Testament being different than God of the New Testament, but he is the same God. He is the same God. And everybody at all times, it was interesting when I began to read the Bible all the way through and to study it with my kids as homeschoolers. I saw how often God made himself known, revealed himself to everybody, to all these people. Even Rahab says, we heard about you. We heard what you did when you parted the Red Sea. We heard what you did to those other kings. We know you're coming. And instead of doing what she did, which is save me, rescue me, I want to be under your God. I recognize that your God is the God. Instead of doing that, they shut themselves in and thought that they could save themselves. And that is the story of mankind, isn't it? Those who say, I can make my own way and I can save myself. And I don't like what you're doing, God, and I will not come under you. And those that say, I recognize, even though I may not understand all of your ways, that you are greater and great. And I want to come under you. And having come under him, she experiences love she never would have experienced otherwise.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah. Okay. So that's the story we're going to unpack in this conversation. I'm so excited. But okay, I just want to back up and think about these spies going into this city. Okay. So if you know about the history of God's people, he chose Abraham and Sarah in Genesis 12. He promises them, I'm going to make of you a great nation. I'm going to give you this promised land. And so the first part has come true. They are now a nation. God turned this childless couple of two into a nation that's probably millions of people at this point. And he rescued them from slavery in Egypt and brought them through the wilderness. And now he's about to bring them into the promised land. I've compared this to like carrying them over the threshold, right? So it's like bringing his bride into the promised land. It's a beautiful time. So Joshua is now the leader of God's people. Moses led them out of slavery. Joshua is about to lead them into the promised land. And Joshua sends in 2 spies to scope out Jericho. God's like, you're going to take this city. This is promised to you. And so he sends these 2 spies. Now, Lisa, do you think you'd make a very good spy?
I would not. And
Why
I
do you
wonder,
say that?
I don't know. I can't imagine, I probably would be scared. First of all, I'd be too scared of going in, I'd be like, I'm going to get caught. I will get caught. That's always been me. So
not have your wits
That's
about
off.
you as a spy.
Yeah.
Well, my husband and I had an opportunity to go undercover once. It didn't go very well. We were supposed to, there was this company that our friend owned that like you would write little reports on how stores or restaurants or hotels were doing. And so you would just kind of go in undercover, like as if you were just a normal customer. And one of the places that we had to go was this restaurant nearby, but we were supposed to, it was like open all night. Or I don't know if it was all night, but it was open late. And so we were supposed to go there between like, I think it was like 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. And so we went at 11. We're just like so tired, So the report that came back was, you need to send some different undercover people because we immediately knew this was not our crowd. So I don't know what my husband and I did. Perhaps we were just tired and like didn't want to be there. But somehow immediately when we walked through those doors, they knew that we were the secret shoppers and didn't go very well. It didn't serve the purpose. Well, that's kind of the story of these two spies that Joshua sends into Jericho. They are immediately discovered and the king is sent word, okay, 2 Israelite spies are here. He's told, it sounds to me like they just have arrived in Jericho and are finding a place to stay. And already when they check into this hotel, the king is alerted, okay, here's where they're staying and sends guards. Is that how it reads to you, Lisa?
Yeah. I mean, we don't know the time frame, but it wasn't a whole day. We know that. So
yeah, it wasn't even a whole day. So I don't know. These guys just aren't probably, too skilled or trained in clandestine.
I mean, they've been in the wilderness for 40 years. So
exactly. Yeah. These are, well, I was thinking about that. These are not these are not escaped slaves because,
right.
But they're the children of, because, they've sinned the last time when Joshua was sent into the promised land. He was one of 2 who said, yes, let's go. Like, it's a great land. Look at the fruit. Like, let's take it. And the other 10 were like, no, these people are like giants. We're too scared. Right. And so, I think it's interesting that Joshua, now that he's in charge, he's one of 2 who get to go into the land. Everybody else has to die, which, I mean, I don't know how that happened, but there were a lot of funerals in those 40 years. Like how many people would have to die every day? If you don't know that story, I think it's in Numbers chapter 12 through 14. If I'll put it in our show notes because I'm not positive on that. But yeah, it's a whole story of how God brought them to the threshold and they were too afraid to go in. He was going to give it to them. And so he sent them wandering for 40 years. So Joshua's like, all right, we're going to do this differently. We're not sending in 12. I'm sending in 2. But this also goes badly. So let's see. Lisa, could you read Joshua 2? Let's do 1 through 7. And
sure.
Which translation are you using?
I believe it's New King James.
Okay.
New King James. So now Joshua the son of Nun sent out 2 men from the acacia grove to spy secretly, saying, go view the land, especially Jericho. So they went and came to the house of a harlot named Rahab and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, behold, men have come here tonight from the children of Israel to search out the country. So you're right, not much time. So the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out all the country. Then the woman took the 2 men and hid them. So she said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from. And it happened, as the gate was being shut when it was dark, that the men went out. Where the men went, I do not know. Pursue them quickly, for you may overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and hidden them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order on the roof. Then the men pursued them by the road to the Jordan, to the fords, and as soon as those who pursued them had gone out, they shut the gate.
Okay, so what is surprising here in this story, Lisa? If you're a Live Like It's True listener, I'm guessing that you love to study the Bible like I do. We're getting quite a collection here of episodes on Live Like It's True, and I wanted to make it easier for you to search by particular story of the Bible. Maybe you're in a Bible study, you're studying a book of the Bible, or you want to do a deep dive on a particular story. Well, we've done a little work for you on the website, making it easier for you to search. You can now search by section and book of the Bible, and you can also search by series. We have the Judgy series, the Easter series, the True Story of the Beginning series. So you can find all of that at shannonpopkin.com.
Okay, so one, that they came to a harlot. That they would come to a harlot. I mean, that's the first thing that jumps out at us, right? That of all the people, I mean, why did they not just like walk into the town and then walk out? You know, why did they choose to actually go into a home? And of all the homes, the home of a woman and the home of a harlot.
Yeah.
So that's first surprising thing. The second is, I think that the thing that all the kids ask when you teach this in Sunday school is, why did she lie? You know?
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they went into and sought refuge from a harlot,
Yeah.
and that she protected them, that might be surprising too.
Well,
that instead of giving them up, she protected them.
Yeah, to me, that's the most surprising thing at first. When you think of her as, I mean, she is born and bred Jericho citizen and has no reason to aid and abet. Like she's committing treason here, right? This would be considered treason against her country, and she's absolutely no reason to do so, at least as far as we've seen so far in the story. And so, why would she side with them? And okay, as far as them choosing to stay at probably like a hotel kind of thing, you know, like obviously you weren't there just for a room, but maybe they were trying to blend in. Maybe they're like, well, what we know about the city of Jericho is it was really evil. Like the Canaanites were very evil. There are lists in Leviticus of don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, like child sacrifice, don't do that. This is what the Canaanites do. Bestiality, don't do that. This is what the Canaanites do. I mean, their level of it's sort of like this corruption that has just sort of taken this city. And so if you were going to blend in, you know, you're a spy and you want to blend in, this is what people did in Jericho. This is why you would come, and especially if you were an outsider, maybe, I don't know. But I could imagine that. Of course, that's all based on speculation, but it is interesting that they end up at her doorstep. And I think if you turn the story around, because we know the end of the story, that she's going to be rescued. Spoiler alert. That's what's going to happen. That's where the story is going. And if you turn this around and recognize, like, these spies, they're not actually going to take back any information that's helpful, right? It's a total failed mission. They don't get any information. They are found out immediately. But what does happen is this woman is rescued. And so, like, that's why I say, I don't think this is a spy mission. I think it's a rescue mission. And I think it's the Lord that sent them to her door. And like you said earlier, our God, he sees those who are like, hey, save me. The rest of Jericho is boarding up. You know, we're going to see later in chapter 6, like the gate of Jericho is boarded. Like nobody's entering, nobody's leaving. They are in full defense mode. But Rahab has a completely different mindset. She's not in defense mode. She's in like, rescue me, save me, and committing treason. So, but let's talk about her lying here a second. You know, we know this is one of the 10 commandments. And so what do you think about that?
So the law was given to us to point us to God and to point us to right living, but God is always over the law. And so there are times where, you know, I think of my late husband's family. His father was put in a concentration camp in Holland, and came to know Christ through Corrie ten Boom. after the war.
No
She had a halfway
way.
house for Hollanders who had been in concentration camps. He was not Jewish. He was Dutch Reformed, but he did come to know Christ there and became a missionary. So he, when you look at Corrie ten Boom and her family, they hid Jews and they lied when the people would come into the house to search. They didn't give them away. They didn't say, look here, we've made this panel, put up this panel here. And those Jews who were hidden were saved.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are, we are not to lie, but I think when God is talking about that, he's talking about lies that destroy and that lies are against him.
Mm-hmm.
And this was an act where she was saving lives and she was
siding with God, right?
She was siding with God.
Yeah.
So she wasn't like so bound. It's like when he says, if your horse falls in a ditch on a Sunday, are you not going to, is it a horse? Is it ox?
Yeah.
Sorry. Somebody say, my ox is in a ditch this Sunday.
Yeah.
If your ox falls in a ditch, you're not just going to stick to the law so much that you say, I'm not going to rescue that ox.
Right.
You rescue that ox. And here she rescued these two men.
Yeah. No, that's really good. It's like the heart of the law. The heart of the law is to honor God and to, honor the image bearers, right? And if she chose not to lie, these two would be given up and they would certainly have been killed, right? So she's not only saving their lives, she's choosing to side in that moment with God and his people. And so I think it's interesting too to look at, if you contrast Joshua 2 with, I think it's Joshua 7, let's see.
6, where she
it's
asks
7 with the story of Achan, because Achan did the same thing. He hid something and he lied about it. And there was a completely different outcome for him and his family. Rahab and her family were saved. Achan and his family were destroyed. And they both did the same thing. And so you look at that and you're like, okay, that's really interesting. What does that tell me about lying? In one instance, it was totally bad and wrong. In another instance, it was totally good and celebrated. And so what's the difference? Well, the difference is, are you siding with God or are you siding against him? Right? Because Achan was clearly disobeying what God had commanded. What he took some of the gold and silver, I think, in clothing that he had found in Jericho, and instead of destroying it, they were commanded to commit it all to destruction. And instead of doing that, he hid it for himself. And so, there were great consequences. But I think that's an interesting story to contrast with this one, right? And think about lying.
Sure. And it doesn't give us a carte blanche, but there are times where we're, if I say to my daughter, do you like this? Do you like my new hairdo? I want her to say, Mom, you look so great. Even if she doesn't really actually think it, right? Because that is love. And it's and this was obviously more consequential, but the law was there to serve us and to point out our sin and our wrongdoing and to point us to Christ.
Yeah. But I mean, it's very interesting that this woman she's a prostitute. So it's like, okay, Lisa, there's this verse that I love in 2 Chronicles. I think it's 16:9. It says, for the eyes of the Lord search across the face of the earth, looking for those that he can commit himself to, strongly support. And I think of that verse in this context, and I wasn't expecting that his eyes are searching for the one he can strongly support, and it's a prostitute, right? I'm thinking, oh, it's that righteous person who stands out in the crowd. Rahab, she doesn't yet stand out. It's quite interesting. The only way she stands out is by wanting to be rescued.
Yeah.
Do you see anything interesting in that?
Yeah, but he saw her heart. He saw her heart. And she's going to end up having an incredible legacy. He's going to use her not just in this instance.
Yeah.
But she's going to have a long legacy in the Lord.
It's so
she's going to have a long life of trusting him.
It's
and
so
walking with
true.
him.
I bet they had fun telling this story, because these these two spies are going to be the ones who go and rescue her after they take the city.
Yeah.
Like I just bet, people for decades later were like, tell the story of when the spies showed up to Rahab's house. So they show up. It's nightfall. She puts them on the roof and the guards come and I love this part too. Chase after them quickly and you can catch up with them. So she gives misinformation and then they skip out of town just as the gate is closing, which I think that's just a storytelling kind of thing. Like they just got out and the gate closes. So what we see is these two spies are shut into the city. They can't get out. And plus they're probably not going to be able to go out that gate. They've already been found out. And so there's not a way out for them. They're going to have to come up with something else. At this point, they know that the king is onto them. What are they going to do? And also these ones deployed to find them can't get back in. They're going to be out there during the night. And so we've got a situation where they're on the roof of this woman's house for the night. We're going to kind of pause the story there, but I want us to think through, Lisa, of the things that we've talked about. Are there any false narratives that this story corrects? God's promises are like a set of parentheses. The first one is when he makes the promise. The second one is when he keeps it. And you never have one without the other. But often there's this long stretch between the two, much longer than we first imagined, right? That's what we see in Sarah's story found in Genesis 12 through 21. God promised a son, but in this wide stretch between the parentheses, she wondered, would God keep his promises? Could he? I'm Shannon Popkin, inviting you to come find the answer to those questions, both for Sarah and yourself, in my brand new 6-week Bible study titled Shaped by God's Promises, Lessons from Sarah on Fear and Faith. Find out how you too can be shaped by God's promises in the waiting.
And we probably haven't gotten far enough into it to see it fully fleshed out. But, going back to my first, just telling you about my friend who goes into the clubs and what those women are like. And for all of us, we can feel disqualified.
Yeah.
We can think either it's something I did before I was saved or even something I did after I was saved.
Mm-hmm.
And we just feel so disqualified from God ever using us. And that is a lie straight from the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
He would love to keep us in that place of feeling not just the shame, but the I will never be able to be used because look who I am and look what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see that whole thing just be blown up, that whole narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if she ever thought that, I wonder if in fear and trembling, she let these men into her home and ask them to save her and her family. Wondering, would God ever do that? Would this great God ever do that for me and for my family, knowing who I am?
Yeah.
But it's a false narrative because, of course, all of us are disqualified, and it's only through the righteousness of Christ that he uses us. And he can use us. So there have been so many times, there have been so many times in my life where I've had to, even now, this many years as I've walked with God, where I've had to say, you know what? Yes, I didn't handle that with my kids right. And yes, I would be so ashamed if people actually saw who I was in that and how I acted in that moment. But Lord, that does not disqualify me. I need to repent and I need to come before you and please change me. And also, please use me.
Yeah, it's so true. I love actually the fact that it says in chapter 6, after the fact, Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute. She's still known as the prostitute. I find that really interesting. It's like her identity. I think God wants us to know that there isn't a certain type of person that is included in his people. Any person who has sinned in any way who can be included in the people of God. And that is Rahab's story. So I think you're exactly right. The false narrative that I have to get myself all cleaned up before I can come to church, before I can cry out to God for his mercy, that is a false narrative. None of us can clean ourselves up. Like that's actually the whole point is we can't. And God knows that. I was actually just dialogue or responding to a man on Instagram yesterday. We were kind of going back and forth. And I had brought up the story of Noah and the flood. And he was saying, yeah, you know, you Christians, you like, you're so judgy, and you feel like you're you're the superior one on the ark, and you're looking out. He thought of the ark story as like a good bedtime story, and I'm like, no, it's a terrible bedtime story. I would never want to tell my children that story at bedtime. It's a story of judgment and death. It's horrible. And I said the only redeeming part of it is that just like those people were in the ark and they were safe, we are in Christ and we're saved. And so his response to that was, yeah, you know, you're in Christ and you look at everybody else as, you know, from your superior place and say, tisk, tisk, you know, look at you, all you bad people. We're the good people. And we're trying to save all of you sinners. And I said, oh my goodness, no. I said, I have done horrible things. I have been an angry wife and mom. I have been selfish, and I've lied, and I've been, you know, had all of the focus on myself. And so like in all of these ways, I've not saved myself. It's humbling to recognize that my sin is that bad that I deserved God's judgment. And he earlier in the conversation, he had said like, love doesn't look down on people with this condescending superiority. Love like cries with me and mourns with me. And so I referred back to that. And I just said, you know, you mentioned love mourning with us. And I said, I think that's what Jesus did. He saw me in my sin, and he knew I couldn't save myself. There was nothing I could do. I was stuck. And he felt bad for me. He felt empathy for me. And that's why he died for me. He saved me. And I said, you're exactly right. If I'm in that ark, and, you know, or if I'm Rahab on the other side of being saved out of Jericho, and I look at all those other people in Jericho, or all those other people being judged by the flood, and say, tisk, tisk, you know, look at you, you bad people. I mean, that would be very, very wrong to have any sort of a condescending superiority, because all of us have sinned. We have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We are all in that one category of sinner. Whether you are a prostitute like Rahab, you know, work in a strip club like these women that you were talking about, Lisa, whether you have embezzled funds, whether you have aborted your baby, whether you have cheated on your husband, we are all in the same category. We are all like the people of Jericho. And all deserve God's judgment, all of us. And yet, look at the one that he responds to. It's the one who says, save me, show your mercy on me. And that does require some humility, right?
Yeah.
To say,
you know, we better stay close to the fact that we were rescued.
Yeah.
That we did nothing to deserve this, that we were not qualified.
Yeah.
And so we don't go into the camp of feeling disqualified at the whole time, you know, all the time. But we also don't go into the other camp of saying, we earned this. And one of the things I've been really trying to do this year, you know, I didn't pick a word of the year, but I just asked the Lord in my quiet time, like, make the gospel come true to me again. Like, make it alive to me every day, that I never, ever get over the fact that you were on a rescue mission, and that you rescued me out of my own sin and have called me to you in that love. You know, when you talk about love, I think of Jesus standing at Jerusalem saying, I just weeping and lamenting, saying how I would have longed to have taken you under my wing, like a hen takes her chicks under her wing. But you were not willing. And here, all of these people in Jericho, and only one willing. Only one saw it, and that was Rahab. And because of her, she said, not just for me, but I want my sister and my brother, my mother, my father, and all of them, their households, to know this love. So yeah,
So
this is
good.
absolutely a rescue mission.
I love it. And I love that you brought up, we haven't seen that part of the story yet, but Rahab's whole family is going to be saved, just like Noah's whole family is going to be saved. Like in the chapter that I wrote on Noah, I talked about like, gosh, only 8 people were saved, but also all of his family was saved, right? And we don't know how many in Rahab's situation, but we have influence. And I think one of the ways that we have influence with our own loved ones, and even with this man that I was interacting with on Instagram, I mean, I don't know how God would use that, but what I think the influence that we have needs to be rooted in humility, in the gospel, recognizing, like telling my kids, you know what, I too deserve God's wrath. I too have been rescued. And look at, it's not by my righteousness that I save myself. That's why I let myself off the hook. I don't have to do it all right. I don't have to push myself. I don't have to stay up too late and lose sleep over these righteous things I'm trying to do. Like I can't save myself. I haven't saved myself. So like living the gospel is not just for that moment that you crossed over from death to life. The gospel should impact our thinking and our living. I love that was your prayer this year, Lisa. It's like it should have impact us on a daily basis over and over and over. And I think that is the greatest influence that we can have in the lives of the people that we love. God does not just choose. He never chooses a righteous person because there were no righteous people. He chooses people like Rahab, people who have done it all wrong and yet who cry out, pick me, save me. In a city full of wickedness, I am the one who's crying out for your mercy, Lord. So, Lisa, let's pick it up next time, okay?
Sounds good.
Where we will talk a little bit more about Rahab. Thank you so much for being my guest today. Can I just remind you that these stories in the Bible are true stories? They're absolutely true. God could have given us a list of facts about himself, but instead he gave us a book filled with stories. These stories help us to know God, and collectively they help us to understand this overarching story that we are all part of. So I hope this episode will inspire you to study this story for yourself straight from the Bible. To help, I've put together my Live Like It's True workbook. It includes some of my favorite tools for studying the narrative sections of our Bible. Also, we're getting quite a collection of episodes, and we've done some work on the website making it possible for you to search for a particular story of the Bible by section and book of the Bible. Come check that out along with my other books and resources at shannonpopkin.com. Live Like It's True is part of the Resound Media Network. For more gospel-centered resources, go to resoundmedia.cc. We've got that link for you, along with any other links to resources we've mentioned in the show notes. All right, friend, are you ready? Now it's time to go live like it's true.